Man vs. 50 with author Richard Maloof.
All right.
Morning.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. It's been a while.
It has been a minute.
Yeah. It's good to see you. Good to have you back.
Yes. Good to see you too.
Off your award-winning car show stuff. That's pretty cool.
It was very cool. That was very cool.
You said there was one Z06 there, though?
Yeah. It was blue with tan interior.
Yeah, no.
So,
no good.
well, I'm just saying. I beat it.
Oh, you did beat it. So congratulations.
Let's just call that.
Congratulations.
Yes.
That's good.
A shout out to McPherson College.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that's where our oldest went to school.
Yeah.
He got his degree, a bachelor's degree in automotive restoration, and now works in the field. And every year the students put on a car show, and this year they had over 500 cars. I mean, the field was packed.
Right.
A 1935 Rolls-Royce Phantom 2, I think is the whole title. That was the best in show. Carrera GT.
That's awesome.
Beautiful.
I
drove it. I mean, he lives, I don't know, Kansas City or something like that. Drove all the way across.
Right.
There was a Shelby Cobra 289.
That's awesome.
From 67, I think. I don't remember. Custom Cars, Rad Rides by Troy is a business that has one of their their lead guy graduated from the college, and they hired one of Mason's friends. So it was an impressive show again. So
well, that's great. So before we get into that, because that's actually a good segue into what we're talking about today, for those people out there who are loving what we're doing, keep supporting us, thank you so much. Keep subscribing. It really helps us on YouTube.
Yep.
Just hit the button, and it's, again, it just really helps us continue to do what we want to do and have fun doing it. So before we get into today's topic, though, how you liking the hair?
I like it.
Okay,
it's
like a new.
Yep.
I'm getting out of my comfort zone with the high hair, and because when you're growing it out, well,
go ahead.
When some of us are growing it out, it gets a weird. I guess it gets in this weird stage, like you don't know what to do with it. But it was getting high, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna start going natural, and people were like, I like it better without a bunch of stuff in it.
I used to when I had hair, I wore it like that.
Okay.
I combed it straight back, and it was great. I used to work at the front desk at the hotel, and every time I bent over to put one of the part of my paperwork into the drawer, my hair would fall down over my face because it was like around my lip,
right?
And every time I came up, I had to, feather it back, and
nice.
It's
like out of a movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that when you wore the purple pimp suit?
Yeah, that's exactly.
That is amazing. God, please tell me you have pictures of that.
It was actually, I called it purple, but my boss was sure to remind me it was called eggplant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Please.
Whatever.
Dig up photos of that.
I'll have to see if I can find something.
Because if you have, I will put it on the video for sure. So you mentioned Mason.
Yes.
And I was with you during that time when he was kind of figuring that out.
Yep.
And today's topic is about what is your purpose? And I think about this all the time.
Yeah.
And so I kind of want to just have a very open conversation about what you think and your thoughts, because I think anything we say might help each other or just the other people that are watching, but I have some thoughts on it. But I've always felt that God gives us certain gifts for certain things. And I've struggled in my life to figure out what my purpose was because I don't know if the things I was doing is what I was meant to be doing. So, and I think that's why I varied off into different things, trying different things, when I moved to California and acting, or when I wrote my book and stuff, because I just had different things, talents that I wanted to explore to see if that was the path I was supposed to be on. So I kind of felt like, hey, I'm really interested in grooming products and helping men, and I want to write a book, and is that my path? So it's been this constant figuring out. Then I've always had this passion for helping men for some reason, like answer questions in a non-threatening way if they needed help with things they wanted to do but were insecure about asking somebody. And that's kind of how the book came about, is because my friends would always give me a hard time about taking a long time to get ready or doing this, doing that. But when I was alone, they would come, hey, can you help me find a good face soap or this or hair gel or whatever? I'm like, wait, you're giving me a bunch of crap, but now you want answers. but it got me thinking maybe I have something to say about it. So that's just like a side note of the bigger thing I'm trying to figure out. And even to this day, I'm still trying to a little bit, like, what is my purpose? Like, I've had thoughts of, you know, being a public speaker and talking to men, or, you know, we're doing this now, which is part of that vision that I had at one point.
Right.
And, you know, I've also thought about going into ministry too, just because I feel like I want to tell some stories about my life to other people. And then I started wondering, like, okay, what's Chris's thoughts on his purpose? And are we where we thought we would be? And do you feel fulfilled that you're honoring God's gifts for your purpose? So I started thinking about you a lot, about you're amazing with people, you're very patient, you're consistent, so you have all these things. So were you just a natural born, and I don't want to, like, how do I say this, like, trivialize property management, but your job is exhausting. And I mean, I'm sorry, because, you know, when I was on the leasing side and I saw every day someone's calling, complaining about, oh, my, you know, carpet in one spot's a little dirty, or the lights flicker. It's just like nonstop. This office is cold. This office is hot. Nonstop. And I'm like, no way could I ever do that in a million years. Even though I like helping people, I have my limitations, right? But you're really good at it.
Well,
so
thank you.
I wonder, when you think about this, is it like, are you truly feel like you're fulfilling your purpose, or do you often think there's something else out there for me?
I do think I'm fulfilling my purpose. I serve others.
Yes.
And I'm like, at not a boastful thing, but I think I'm good at it.
You're really good at it.
Well, thank you. I enjoy it. I do. And you're right. It is exhausting. But I've always said that I'm in the relationship business, and not just at work, right? So my purpose, I mean, the ultimate purpose, Matthew 28, go out into the world, preach the gospel, baptizing everybody, you know, and that's the ultimate purpose of our life. How do you do that? For me, it's building relationships. And so I get to know people. That's just what I do. When in my work, it's hard because it's the nitpicky things.
Right.
But I can't let that derail the overall goal of that person being happy where they are, where they office, that their employees are happy, that their business functions and operates and is successful. I'm a part of that, a very small part of it. I mean, I'm not in their operations, but if I'm not doing my job, their operations suffer somehow, right? They have a hard time retaining employees,
right?
Because it's, like you said, too hot, it's too cold. People don't want to work there. So my job is in the relationship business.
Right.
So
are you, okay, two questions.
Okay.
Because I want to dig deeper.
Okay.
Are you passionate about it?
I think I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think you are too. But is it your passion? So there's two different things here. Like,
okay.
Are you passionate about it? But is it your passion? Like, if you closed your eyes right now and someone said, Chris, whatever you want to do in life, I'll grant you that wish. What would it be?
It would be related.
Okay.
So I mean, you know, the wish, you know, have a hotel on an island.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the dream, right?
Right.
But what does that mean? It's serving others,
right,
making them happy,
right,
making an experience for them. So I think it's definitely related. So
I think it's good because I feel like I'm similar. Like, I enjoy, okay. Is serving and helping the same thing? I'm trying to figure that out, because I think you're very good at serving. I don't think I'm good at serving. I think I'm good at helping, if that makes sense. Because,
well, serving is putting aside a ranking system per se. Again, this is just, Chris Ball's opinion.
Right.
But in serving, you are humbling yourself to making sure that whatever it is that someone needs is taken care of. I was a general manager for a retirement community, and it was a lot of elderly people that lived there. I didn't necessarily enjoy having to make sure that sometimes there were some accidents that occurred, and we had to clean it up.
Right.
Well, I didn't enjoy that, but there's a person there, right? And they need help. They don't need me to be, well, I guess I'll clean it, or kind of an attitude like that. My servant attitude is, you don't worry about anything. I'm going to take care of this. You just have a seat. What else can I get for you? Here, have a Coke while we take care of this. Or, it's always for me, it's always, I want to make that other person feel important, feel better. Whether that's a situation like that in the hotels, it was to give them a great experience, that when they left, they go, man, that was a great stay. I really enjoyed it. I'm not financially trying to go, ooh, I'm going to make money next time, they look for a vacation because they're going to come stay with me.
Right.
It's not about that. It's about building that relationship. Lori has said, well, and even my mom too, but I've never met a stranger. And my mom used to say I could have a good conversation with a brick wall, and I could sell a dead horse to a horse jockey. I will make a relationship with anybody. I could be in a restaurant and somebody says something, bang, hey, what's up? Like we've known each other for years. And Lori has even asked me before, do you know them? No.
Right. And it's interesting. So it's weird because we're in sales in a different way. Mm-hmm. And I'm a really good salesperson, but I really don't like people. Like, I'm an introverted extrovert.
Yeah.
So I'm very to myself. I don't like small talk. Like you, I won't just start talking to strangers because not to sound, I don't care. Mm-hmm. And I know that sounds terrible, but I just don't care because I just really don't. I don't know. And that's a gift that you have where I don't have. I think you have more empathy and patience.
Agreed.
And I'm more like, I love like a problem solver.
Right.
Like, give me a problem.
That's a task.
Yeah, let's solve it.
Right.
I always tell people, like when I had my big sales teams, like the shortest distance between A and B is a straight line. Yep. Let's not complicate it, but let's figure it out. And so that to me, like I used to tell my CEO, because he would give me like arbitrary things. And I said, listen, if you told me to go outside right now and run for 10 minutes, I can't do it. I just can't. Because in my mind, I can't comprehend what that is. Mm. But if you told me to run from this office to the Galleria, even though that was going to take 40 minutes, I could do it because I knew where the finish line was. Mm. I always have to know where the finish line is because then I know what it takes to get there. And that's just how my brain works. And I love helping people if they have the right attitude, the thought process. But if they come in with like, I already know what I'm doing, I don't need any help, I can't help them because I'm like, you have the worst, you're never going to learn. And when I went to work in commercial real estate, I came from advertising. I'm 40 years old. People are like, what are you doing at 40 trying to get into commercial real estate? I knew nothing. So I had two choices. Go in with an ego, saying, listen, I was an executive in my other career. Now I'm a pre-sales agent making 10% of what I used to make. But I knew I had to do it to learn how to get to the next level. Yeah. Obviously, it worked out really well, but it was my attitude. I can either go in and pretend I'm like too good for this, or go in and just be a sponge and soak up. And I used to tell everyone, I used to walk around with an 8.5 by 11 legal pad, every term I heard in commercial real estate, bumps, triple net, whatever it was.
Yep.
I would go home and Google it and teach myself commercial real estate.
Yeah.
And that's how I got ahead. And eventually, most of those employees who were like, what the hell is this old guy doing here, became my employees because I wanted it so bad. And the more I didn't know and the more they looked down on me, like, what's going on, I worked harder and harder and harder.
So your purpose then, just what, up here, is to solve problems.
Right. And that goes back to our helping. We both want to, the underlining is we both want to help people.
Right. But you have a specific, hey, I need my tire changed. I'm here. I can change your tire for you. And mine, I'll change the tire, right? But I want to get to know them.
Right.
I like the whole relationship thing. Yours is
that's so true.
They're just so different.
That's such a good analogy because it's like literally, hey, listen, go stand over there. Just let me change the tire and I'll help you get on your way. You're like
me. I'm like, hey, come here.
So, you want a cup of coffee?
Right.
Yeah. It's totally different, but I love it because I think God has given us gifts, and I wonder still, again, this purpose thing is really in researching this really got me thinking a lot, and the things I want to do and the things I want to continue to grow at. And like this, I love what we're doing because I think it's going to continue. I mean, we've been doing this, 2.5 months, 3 months?
Yeah.
And look where it's at now to where it was.
Right.
Sometimes I open up our YouTube channel and I look at it and I'm like, wow, we've done a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
We just had this idea and it turned into something like really cool, and, but I think it's going to grow into something, and this got me to thinking. So, and then there's another part of this, but I was listening to this speech by Steve Jobs, and okay, so he was adopted, which I didn't know, but he was adopted, and part of his parents who were giving him up for adoption said that the people that were going to adopt him had to be college graduates, because they wanted good things for their son. Okay. And they had the baby, and at the very end, this couple they had picked out were going to come and adopt him. And at the last minute, they're like, well, we want a girl. So they didn't adopt him. Oh. But then there was this other couple on the list that neither one of them had gone to college. And so the parents of Steve Jobs were like, no, we want them to be college graduates. And the parents that ended up adopting him promised the parents that they would send him to college. He would go to college no matter what.
Okay.
Pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
So they agreed to it. So he finishes high school. He goes to college, just Reed College, right? And he gets it, and he just is like, this isn't for me. And he's like, I'm sitting there thinking about all my parents' savings and hard-earned money is going to me paying for college, and I just don't want to be here. And he said, but during that time, because he had this thought process, he's like, I'm going to stop going to the classes I have to go to and go to classes I want to go to. So one of the classes he went to was calligraphy, which I took calligraphy in grade school. I don't know if you did, but
no.
It's beautiful. It's
How old are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm still younger than you, brother. And he took calligraphy.
Okay.
And he learned the spacing and the design and all this stuff. And then he's like, well, that was great. How is this even useful in my life? 10 years later, when they came out with the Mac, the typography of the Mac was calligraphy. And he learned like sans serif and the fonts and all the spacing through that calligraphy class.
Interesting.
Isn't that pretty cool?
Yeah.
And he said, he made a comment that was pretty impactful. He said, but you cannot connect the dots in the future. You can only connect the dots from the past. So he was able to connect the dots of how this class impacted what he did after he did it and looked back. Saying that people get caught up trying to connect the dots in the future. Like, Like,
Okay.
what are we doing here at this podcast? What does that mean in the future?
Yeah.
We have no idea.
Yeah.
But in a year, we might look back and say, hey, this is why this happened or whatever. So his message was, if you love something and are passionate about it, then continue on that path, even though you can't see what the end
Where it's taking
result
you.
is, which I love.
I always need a plan. But when we talk about this, you know, I 100% agree with the analogy with Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
Is that I'm just doing this. Where does it take me? I don't know.
Right.
I mean, I want to achieve, you know, early in my career, I want to be this. I want to work here. I want to do this. But all along, the overall serving, the hospitality part of me, I just wanted to do that.
Right.
Now, where does it take me? Well, I hope upward, you know, to a higher, you know, job and you know, career path wise.
Obviously, yeah.
But
You don't know.
I didn't know.
You don't know.
Yeah, I just had a good time doing it.
Right. And I think that our culture is very misleading with what it teaches us. It's like, choose a career
Yeah.
for the paycheck,
Yeah.
which is honestly not what you're that's not your passion.
Right.
You're looking. So then you become working to survive when you're not really working your passion.
For what?
Exactly. And I think the other thing that my research it also was talking about is when parents tell their kids, you can be anything you want to be, which is a lie. You can't. You can be the best with everything you're gifted to be. I can't be a pro basketball player. I can't. It's just a fact, right? Because physically I don't have the gifts but that's not what God intended for me. So that thought process, yes, I understand it. You can be anything you want to be if you set your mind to it within limitations, right? I mean, you can't.
Spud web.
Well, exactly. But, okay, you're right. Spud web.
Right.
But listen to what I said. Physically gifted. He was physically gifted with what, a 52-inch vertical?
But you don't, if we're talking about, you know, the kids in that regard, I wouldn't ever say you don't have the skills, right? Or you don't have the gifts. I think they need to find that out on our own.
Right. But, and this is good, I agree, but at the same time, you have to also be realistic.
Of course.
Right? Because,
look, as a dad, I knew Mason was not a basketball player.
Right.
It was, and if he watches this, I'm sorry, bud. You just weren't.
Right.
He don't even try to dribble with the left hand. Right. But he didn't necessarily have aspirations to be the next NBA, you know, superstar. But he wanted to play basketball.
Right.
Well, I knew this is not going to be really good. But you know what? I'm not going to tell him, no, don't do it. You can't dribble with your left hand.
Right.
Go ahead. Mason went and he found out. He played 2 seasons and he was like, I don't think this is for me. That's where I don't disagree with what you're saying.
Right.
But I think the avenue to get there is.
I think there's a balance.
Yeah.
Right. You weren't going to discourage him.
Right.
But you also weren't going to invest a lot of time into encouraging him.
Right.
You were just going to let it play out the way it would play out.
And two, it's a mindset that you're teaching them to put your mind to something to be great at it.
Right.
You know, you want to be ABC, go be it.
Right.
There's not anything preventing you from trying.
Right. Exactly. And I think we're saying the same thing in a roundabout way. And I think, which leads me back to what you were talking about with Mason. When he first came to you and said, hey, Dad, I want to go to college to learn how to restore cars. If you were being honest with yourself, your first thought was like, what?
Well, so actually the way it came about, Mason didn't know what he wanted to do. He goes,
Right.
I just want to do something with cars.
Right.
That's where I was like, oh, okay, I don't want for him. I've known guys that were mechanics,
Right.
right? You know, leaning over the fender, and physically it's hard, and you know, financially it's rough. You know, it's good and bad. You get in with a good company, fine, but then what's a good company in the mechanics world? And so I thought, geez. So I really tried to, you know, direct him to go to college, get an engineering degree, right? He didn't want to do that. When I was watching TV and found this, the college,
Right.
I'm the one that showed him. And I said, "You're not going to believe what I just found." He saw that and said, "That's where I'm going."
Yeah.
So in that regard,
It's amazing. Yeah.
by that stage, I was 100% behind it,
Right.
supporting it. But early, when it was, I want to work on cars.
Right.
Ooh.
But
Okay, because I didn't have the knowledge
right.
of how to help him become successful in working in cars.
Right. And look how it turned out.
I,
Amazing, right?
Yeah.
And bigger and better than you ever could have dreamed.
Yep.
And it brings me back to this question, the purpose, right? So one thing, like, and got me thinking about this when I was doing this too, is my nephew Jacob. Okay. And I don't know if I've talked to you much about Jacob, but I have a niece and a nephew who were born with some issues, right?
Okay.
My niece Jessica had heart issues, and my nephew Jacob had hearing issues.
okay.
So, and I'll use Jacob as an example. Like, I think about Jacob. I spent time with him in Florida, and you know, another one of my study people and watch, and this is my deep thinking stuff that sometimes gets me in trouble, but you know, I watched him and observed him a lot. And I started thinking to myself, okay, he has a cochlear implant,
yeah.
which is, again,
Fascinating.
amazing.
Yeah.
Like, how do they even come up with this stuff, you know? And he graduated from University of Iowa. And I think to myself, okay, I have my nephew Jacob, who's deaf, has a cochlear hearing, and has a great job at a big company in Peoria, extremely intelligent, graduated from University of Iowa. And I started thinking to myself, like, about purpose. I'm like, is this his purpose? Is his purpose to work at this big company? He negotiates contracts.
Comes by that, honestly.
Yeah. Or is he destined to do something different? And what I think about him is, how many of us have, like, going through college, like, don't want to go to class, don't want to do this, don't want this, like, and we're fine. And now I have my nephew who has to struggle or figure out a way to learn given his hearing, which is a whole nother challenge. We're not even, can't even comprehend, right? Yeah. And I wonder if, in watching him, I'm just like, what is his story, and doesn't his story need to be told to somebody to encourage younger kids who are deaf that you can do this? And so maybe his story is being written, but I still think his purpose is more than negotiating contracts at this company.
Yeah.
I think he could be an inspiration and a role model to that community of, look what I accomplished. He's married, has 2 beautiful kids, and nothing stops him. Like, it's crazy. And I remember he's embraced it so much. One day I'm sitting by the pool and he comes down, I turn to say something to him. He's like, "Uncle Richie, I don't have my hearing aids in. I can't hear anything you're saying."
Don't even try.
I'm like, okay. Okay. So it just makes me wonder if he understands the power of what he could be telling people in his situation. And maybe that's his purpose. And maybe he needs to he watches, so hopefully he understands what I'm saying.
Yes.
And if not, his my brother will explain to him what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because he's still young. He's in his young 30s. Maybe his purpose is more than he's even understanding right now in his life. Maybe he needs to be a voice of this. And when we get to that place where we start doing live interviews on the podcast, I want him to come on and tell his story so you can understand, because as much as my brother maybe can say his story, or my sister-in-law Kathy, or whoever, only he knows what's going on inside of him.
Yep.
And like I said, spending time with him and watching him, it got me, my brain just, and I just wonder, like, I would love to help him help other people, because I think there's a big story here. And to give the kids who are like, oh, I'm born with this disability, I can't do anything, I'm just going to give up, or I'm just going to do whatever. He like never skipped a beat. Honestly, if you couldn't see his hearing aids, you would never know. And it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's a miracle.
That's cool.
And so, again, it just got me thinking a lot about what our purpose is. And, you know, I think the one thing I don't ever want to fall victim to is feeling that we're running out of time to understand our purpose as we get older. And in the things I've researched, most people discover their purpose later in life at our age, actually. And so maybe this is part of it.
Yeah.
Whatever we're supposed to be doing. Maybe we're just two old guys in a studio talking, but who knows?
Whatever.
Right?
Yeah.
So anyway, it's just this whole thing about our purpose, and I wanted to get your feedback because, again, I say this all the time, you and I are super similar and super different, and it makes for great conversation because I like to see your perspective and mine. And so I was curious what you thought, and like, will this show get you thinking about this a little bit more? You know, because it has me, just researching it has got me like, especially the Steve Jobs stuff and all this other stuff, and my nephew and my niece. What are their purposes, and should we encourage them to discover more about it?
Yep.
You know, just like you did Mason.
Yeah.
Like, you were scared because you didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
And then once you started getting more confident, and then it started making sense, like, okay, maybe he's not saying, Dad, I want to be a mechanic down at Jiffy Lube.
Right.
He's like, I want to do a little bit more.
He was 18 and he said, I want to tell the story of the car. And I went, you're 18. How did you come up with that?
Yeah. Who are you?
And exactly. And it was, I want to know everything about the car, and I want to make it the way it used to be, so that the next guy can tell his story.
Yeah, it's so cool.
So
I love the
neat.
story about Mason, and one day we'll do a show on Mason because I just think it's super cool, because it's really cool.
It is.
And shockingly, like, all this panned out, and perfect.
Yeah.
So he's very lucky. So, all right, man.
All right.
Thank you so much. And
You
we'll
got
get
it.
out there and maybe we'll revisit this and see what happens from it. But it'll be nice when we get set up for our live interviews so we can bring people in and get their feedback on some of this stuff. So, all right, man.
Okay.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks for watching Man vs. 50 with author Richard Malouf. Don't forget to subscribe.